All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. So excited to have everybody here. We had a little hiatus beginning of the year as we sort of had to catch up on a few other things, but we are back with regular episodes of Sales Pipeline Radio on Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. Excited to have you all here and have you back. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, thank you so much for doing so. You can add a comment to the stream and we'll be able to see that and respond to that. If you're watching or listening on demand, either on LinkedIn or on the RSS feed, thank you so much for checking us out. We have over 250,000 subscribers at salespipelineradio.com. So welcome you as well. Very excited to have with us today Steve Gielda from Ignite Selling. Steve, thank you so much. We've got a ton to talk about today, including your new book, Ignite Your Sales Strategy, a Field Guide to Accelerating Your Pipeline. Excited to talk about the book and just sort of modern sales strategies in general. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be with all of your listeners, and appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many different angles we can go down on this road, but I think, the one I'm most excited about and, represented in your book as well is like standing out in the sales process today, right? Whether you're in a commoditized market or whether you're just in a market that is getting inundated with messages, standing out and doing that in a repeatable, predictable manner is really, really hard. What have you learned about sort of selling in 2026, and what do modern sellers need to know?
It's a great question. It's a big question too, Matt. I think that a lot of the clients that we're working with today, as we are finding kind of in this times of uncertainty from an economy standpoint, that we're hearing from our customers that buyers are now starting to really look at the decisions that are being made around spending money. Let's just say it, let's put it that way.
Right.
And what's really common is that lower cost solution provider is getting more attention. And so therefore creating value, which has always been important, is really becoming even more important. But what we're really finding out is buyers are starting to commoditize decisions rather quickly. And a lot of that is because those buyers are being held to a series of metrics that have become even more important during difficult economic times. So we often ask our clients that we're working with, ask the sales reps, what are the top 3 or 4 critical business metrics that your client is trying to improve in the next 12 months? And unfortunately, not many of them know.
Right.
And in absence of knowing that, they really kind of find themselves playing this price game because they're not able to really align back their solutions to the metrics the clients are trying to achieve.
What's behind that? I mean, I feel like we talked about a version of this for a very long time. Where like, if I'm just selling sand, everyone has sand. Well, yes and no, but like, what's the use case for that sand? Is there something specific you need in that sand? I can go to Home Depot right now and I can buy a bag of like clean sand for a sandbox. I don't know what clean means. I don't know why I need different sand for my sandbox, but probably per pound, I'm paying a lot more for that bag of sand than sand somewhere else. So like, what are some of the tactics that companies and sellers are using to stand out?
I think that's a great question. I think some of the best, Matt, are probably not focused on how they're describing sand or what the product is itself. What they're really doing is they're focusing on what are the outcomes that client's trying to achieve as a result of buying their product. So it's not just about understanding who those competitors are, but it's having a real clear understanding is what are the outcomes you're trying to drive as a result of wanting to make a change from the sand provider you're currently having today. If you're currently buying sand, but you're wanting to look for make a change, what's driving that change? Yeah. You might hear the customer say, well, we believe that we can get it at a lower price. Well, that might be true. You can always find something at a lower price, but why don't we talk a little bit about what's the purpose of the sand and what is it are you really trying to accomplish, the metrics you're trying to accomplish as a result of making a change. People just don't make change to save money. Yes, that's an easy throwaway. We're trying to save money. We're looking to lower costs. Therefore, we're going to make a change. But I think when you hear buyers say that, you start to unpack that a little bit further. You find out there's a little bit more behind their desire, that statement that they're saying, we're trying to save money. There's something a little bit more behind it that your solution may actually be able to drive.
Well, and there's always going to be members of the market that they're just looking for the low price period. And unless you want to be the low price provider, that may not be a good customer match for you. But when someone says I need to pay less, oftentimes it's not about the money. right? Like, what are you really trying to get here? And you and I both know that if you pay less for something, that might be the most expensive thing you do if it's not the right solution, if it doesn't deliver the outcome, right? Yeah. People think CFOs' jobs are to spend money. No, their job is to buy outcomes. And the reason they push back on you when they say, like, do we really need that, is not because they don't want to spend the money. It's because they're not sure that is going to buy the outcome they want versus something else. And so as sellers, we have to be proactive, right, at sort of helping our buyers, helping our customers have those conversations internally.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think I'm going to steal that phrase, buying outcomes. I've never really heard that phrase before, Matt, and I think that's very true. Buyers, I don't care if you're an economic buyer or a technical buyer, whatever it might be, but I think buyers are buying outcomes. It's exactly right. The question is do you know the outcomes that they want to buy? And too often, salespeople are so focused on the features and the benefits of their particular product that they're trying to push something that the client doesn't really need. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, the question is what is the buyer's outcomes? Here's just a quick little story. We bought a car recently for my wife. And when we went shopping, the sales representative was so quick to go ahead and demonstrate how quickly you can go from 0 to 60. And that wasn't the issue. That wasn't the outcome we were looking for. They were talking about the tectonic plates that were on the dash. I mean, on the steering wheel. Hey, that's fine for you. I simply asked my wife. I said, "Honey, sit down in the car. Why don't you tell the guy what's most important to you right now?" And she says, "I need to have a seatbelt that doesn't cut me across the neck." Let's start there.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a car that's going to be safe, but you don't want to have a seatbelt that cuts you across the neck. And it's time to get a new car, and that's going to be one of the things that's important to you. Sit down. Sat down in the car. Guess what happened? The seatbelt cut her across the neck just based upon how tiny she is. So I said, okay, we got to find another car. But the guy didn't know my outcomes, and he was so busy talking about the things that marketing said. You know what really makes this particular product cool? It's got these tectonic plates, and it can go from 0 to 60 this fast. I didn't give a damn. So yeah, I think you're right. Buyers are they're buying outcomes.
Well, I think that we don't reinforce enough to our sellers that they need to be asking those questions up front. For those of you who listen to this podcast for a while, like you probably heard me tell a version of this story. Like one of my favorite things to tell inside sales teams is, listen, rule number one, when you talk to a prospect for the first time, assume you can't talk about your product or service. Assume you can't get into features and doing demos. If you knew you couldn't talk about what you are selling, what's the conversation you would have? And if they in your wife's example, like if I'm not talking about the car features, I'm more saying like, what's the outcome you're looking for here, right? Where have you failed to achieve that outcome in the past? Do you have any war stories or scars you want to talk about? That's sort of the opposite of that, and that gives you insights into how to talk about the solution, not the product, but the solution and the outcome that matters.
Well, one of the questions I love to ask salespeople, and we do a lot of win-loss analysis. In other words, when salespeople win, we kind of find out why. And what we do is we go talk to the sales rep, and then we go talk to the customer. And whether it be a win or whether it be a loss, we ask the same 5 questions. But one of those questions that we ask the sales representatives is, why did you lose? Mm-hmm. We all know what the number one answer is when a sales representative said, why did they lose? They'll tell you they lost because of price. But that when we go back and we talk to that particular customer, why did you choose to go with company A over our particular client? We come to find out his price didn't even make it in the top 2. Mm. But what we did ask is, we asked the customer, other than price, what were the other critical decision criteria that matter most to you in this buying decision? Now, we asked sales representatives that same question. Other than price, what is the decision criteria this customer is using to compare you against the competition? They'll give you an answer. Mm-hmm. It's going to be things such as, speed of efficiency, or it could be reliability of the product, or whatever it might be. And then I asked the sales rep the second question. What unique capability does your product have that this customer is not giving consideration to? And why not? Mm-hmm. Because if the customer is buying outcomes and you have something that can truly help that outcome, shouldn't that unique capability be part of that decision criteria? So for your listeners, ask your customer these questions. Other than price, because we all know price is important, Mr. Customer. What are the other 2 or 3 most critical criteria that you're using to compare us against other vendors, other partners that are out there? See what they have to say and find out what's missing. So
we call this show. No, I love it. We call this show Sales Pipeline Radio on purpose, but a lot of our audience is marketers, field marketers, demand marketers, those that are sort of helping, supporting their sales partners. What lessons are in this book that marketers should be paying the most attention to?
Boy, that's a great question. I think that when you sit back and you look at the marketer's role is to help the salespeople do a better job of accelerating revenue growth. So what does that really mean? That means that they need to help them make sure that they're targeting the right customers and providing them with the right information at the right time. So when you simply break that down, what is it that a marketing person can do to help a salesperson is to do that research ahead of time. Help them kind of understand that, guess what? When we're launching a new product, that key stakeholder that bought our product last time is not likely to be the stakeholder this time.
Right. The
new capabilities of this product click a different button inside the buyer profile. Who we really need to be talking to now is, I'm going to make something up, is the chief technology officer. You guys have been selling in distribution, but this new capability that we have right now requires us to engage with the CTO. That would be something that in our book, we kind of talk about managing the key stakeholders. Marketing can be very useful based upon their upstream marketing. Why was this product brought to market? Who does this product really serve? To help the sales team recognize that, hey, the buyers that you worked with in the past are still going to be important, but not the number one most important person. We now need to engage with maybe the CTO. Yeah. That'd be one area that the book can help in. I think the other area that the book can really help in is this area around decision criteria. Your product was brought to market to meet some very specific outcomes. In most cases, if you ask a customer, what's the criteria that you're using to compare us against the competition, it's a generic set of criteria that maybe your competitor established.
Right.
So marketing needs to help that sales representative recognize that there are 3 unique capabilities. These aren't features or benefits. These are unique capabilities that CTO should really care about. Let me help you explain what those particular capabilities are and why, or what would happen if a CTO makes a decision and doesn't have this capability. Marketing can help salespeople with that.
Yeah, I love that. Just got a few minutes to wrap up here, talking about commoditized marketplaces and the new book, Ignite Your Sales Strategy. First of all, where can people get that book today? Is that Amazon or go to your website?
You pick it up on Amazon. And I tell you what we'll do is, for any of your listeners that want a free copy of the book, they just connect with me on LinkedIn. You got my name right here. Just connect with me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd like to have a copy of your book. We'll make sure we get a free copy of the book sent out to you.
Love that. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, of course.
You're talking about this, kind of stakeholders. We're talking about the C-suite. Sometimes, depending on what we're selling, you want to get to, what the literature calls veto, right? The very important top officer. But sometimes she won't get on the phone. She's deputized this to their team, and you want to get her attention. And also, I've heard this concept of sort of perceived commoditization. Right? Where there's a big difference between you and other platforms, but if someone that isn't educated in the market be like, they're all the same, just pick one and get the lowest price. How do you combat that, especially with an executive that you don't have FaceTime with?
I think there's two challenges there. One is, how do you get access to the person that you really need to talk to? And I think sometimes sales representatives are intimidated by having to go to that person, particularly if you know that person is not a fan of your particular solution because of some history they've had in the past, right? But they still are involved in that decision. We have to recognize that we still might have some advocates inside this account. We kind of look at it. We have a tool called the influencer snapshot. It's simply a snapshot in time that simply just says, what is the level of influence of these individuals, and of those individuals, who loves you and who doesn't, who's an advocate, who's an adversary. Too often sales representatives feel as if they have to go it alone. We ask them, which of your advocates can you leverage to help you gain better access to those people that have higher influence? Leverage those advocates to get you access, but also leverage those advocates to get you smart on what are the outcomes that these particular influencers are wanting to achieve. What would they really care about if I'm in a meeting with them? Use your advocates for that. But let's so the one issue is do we have access? The second part that you brought up really is around the commoditization when your pricing is such a big difference. Right. I think the answer to that one is going back to what we talked about earlier, Matt. and I'm again go back to what you said. Buyers buy outcomes. You can reduce that margin of price differential by really understanding what the outcomes your customer is buying and demonstrating how your capabilities can do that. And then you might actually find that they're willing to pay more for it far more than what the current provider currently has. They may say, I'm looking for a lower price. Mm-hmm. You may actually find that they're willing to pay more than what they're currently paying today because you've demonstrated that you can actually help them drive the outcomes that they want.
Love that. Well, we're out of time for today. Steve, thank you very much for being here. 2 calls to action for folks here. If you want a copy of the book, Ignite Your Sales Strategy, connect with Steve on LinkedIn. Ask him, remind him you came from Sales Pipeline Radio. He'll hook you up. Also, go to igniteselling.com. You're going to find more information on the book. You're going to find a ton of great content for free there as well. So check that out. Steve, thank you so much for doing this with us. I appreciate it.
Always a joy being with you guys. Thanks again for the opportunity. Thanks for the invitation. Look forward to meeting with you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time on Sales Pipeline Radio. Take care.
Bye-bye.